center field. Going back is Gonzalez. It is gone! Two-run home run by Schwarber. Stays put, and there's a high fly ball. Deep right field. Harper watches it fly.
We're back for an off-season edition of the Double Switch podcast. End of season press conference reaction pod. I don't know what to call this. Dave and Topper had a chance to kind of discuss the season. And if you're kind of a diehard Phillies fan like me, that's interesting content for you. I watched all 90 minutes of it. I have some opinions. I'm sure you have some opinions. I'm sure Twitter has some opinions. But it was interesting to say the least. How are you doing today, Johnny?
I'm good. Yeah, like you, I see that news and I'm interested because that we just had a pretty disappointing season, like end to our season, and I know a lot of us have been kind of having gut reactions about this team and like, all right, how do we like shake this up a little bit, or are we running it back? So getting to hear from those two was exciting to see.
Yeah, so I think the best way to do this is I watched all 90 minutes. Let me just go through everything that I think is important. We'll get your reaction, and then we'll go to my reaction, and we'll just move through all of it. And I think the best place to start here is where they started. Rob Thomson, one more year on his deal. They added 2026. I've heard a lot about Rob Thomson in the past week, specifically. They think there seems to be a large majority of Phillies fans who think they might need a new voice after 3 consecutive postseasons where they came up short. Obviously, the front office doesn't agree. They give him another year. They did not want a lame duck manager, which I do understand. That's never a great situation to be in. But I'm just surprised a little bit at the timing because right after like just an awful loss like that, you extend your manager. How do you feel about that, Johnny?
I think you know for sure that I was more on as much as I supported Rob Thomson since he took over for Girardi, I thought it was time for a new voice in the clubhouse, a younger, more energetic voice. Nothing against Topper. I think he kind of got us to this point. He's been a stability, but I thought it was time to move on, and I thought he's at an older age. I thought it could be like a mutual way, maybe even offer him something in like a front office type gig, kind of change roles. But they went for it. They didn't ask me what I thought. And I'm okay with it because I took the angle. I saw the angle actually on Twitter that as an organization that brings in a lot of free agents and trade players through trades, you don't really want to get rid of a manager. Players on the free agent market don't really want to go to a place that has a whole shakeup like that. They see the Phillies clubhouse and they kind of want to like mesh into it. So I think they're just doing it to keep everything stable. I don't think they really want this big shakeup, and I think that is a huge indicator for everything else.
Yeah, it kind of set the tone of the entire press conference, if you ask me.
It did.
Topper, I always thought that while I saw the argument for removing him, I felt like it was pretty unlikely, especially with a year on his deal still.
Yeah.
And it wasn't super obvious that he was the problem. You know, sometimes when there's like the Girardi situation, it was obvious that the clubhouse didn't like him and it wasn't working. They still like Topper. I think he's a good guy to look up to in the clubhouse. You know, he's calm, he's consistent, and no major issues with that. I think that
I guess I kind of missed one thing. Oh, you just took the words right out of my mouth, actually.
Yeah, the entire staff being back was a little interesting because that's usually an opportunity just to make like a little tweak. You know, you bring in a different coach and it kind of changes a fundamental aspect of the team. You don't have to tear it down and get rid of the manager. You can kind of just change hitting coaches and get a little different philosophy. And that's the move I was expecting, to be completely honest. I thought that they would take a look at the hitting coach. role and see that, the results have not been kind of where we wanted them to be. I'm going to circle back to this at a later point because I think there's other stuff that was said during the press conference that kind of goes with this. But let me throw it to you real quick on keeping the rest of the coaching staff together for 2025.
Very surprised, like you. I thought this was kind of the perfect situation just to kind of swap out Kevin Long. I never thought they were going to get rid of Caleb Cotham. He's done a fantastic job. Dusty's a fine third base coach. The rest of the staff I have no qualms with, but it felt like it would have been a nice save face move for them to let Kevin Long go, take a new approach to hitting because our hitting has remained identical the past 3 seasons, but they didn't, and I think a lot of fans are justifiably disappointed. What kind of caught my ear is that Dombrowski said that Topper wanted his staff back, so he got it back. Why are we giving Topper that much autonomy of his coaching staff?
Let's circle back to that. I have something on that, but
Okay.
let's not hit that yet.
Let's
get to
the train moving.
Once we get to the Topper part, we'll get to that.
Okay.
My second big takeaway, there was a clear first off, Dombrowski throughout all of it, you can tell that he was deflecting the whole time, and he's a pro at it. He's so good at it. He said a whole lot of nothing. He gave a lot of I can't answer that right now. I still have to talk to blank. I still have to, all kinds of stuff, the whole thing.
Yep.
And I get it. That's part of the role. You can't really show your hand too much. But I did find it interesting the names that he would commit to having a role versus not having a role. Some of the interesting names that he said were part of the future. Brandon Marsh was mentioned as being a part of the plan for next year. Alec Boehm, 100% part of the plan next year. Andrew Painter, he was mentioned. His innings and kind of his role in the team was a big part of next year. I know they mentioned Justin Crawford actually for a possible outfield role next year. The names that he would not commit to were Austin Hayes and a rotation spot for Taijuan Walker.
Yep.
None of that's super surprising. I think that it was always a long shot that they would trade Alec Boehm. Brandon Marsh, more likely, but probably not super likely. Hayes and Walker were super disappointing. And I think that part of the entire conference was kind of expected compared to the rest of it.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. I was watching that thinking David Dombrowski would be a great politician the way he can give us all these non-answers. It was quite impressive. But yeah, I think he actually did like a very, very good job of avoiding that because as in his position, he knows that all of those guys that he backed up, the Marshes, the Rojas, those guys are on contract. We're not sure we can swing a deal, like trade them and get what we want. We know that Austin Hayes does not have to be on this team next year. And Taijuan Walker, I think it doesn't take a genius to figure out that this organization, this fan base, really doesn't want to see him back in the Phillies pinstripes. So I think he did a good job of doing what he could. Kind of like you said, he can't just go and be like, Brandon Marsh, I think we got to upgrade.
We don't want that guy. Yeah.
No, and
he played it
we're fans, so like we can like come at it in like more of a disrespectful angle. He knows these guys. It's more personal, so he has to go about it this way. Even if he is going to blow up the team, he's not going to say that.
Yeah. So he didn't really play. He didn't show his hand. I think that you can kind of tell where they're at on a player based off of their plan for the offseason. Rojas is going to be in Clearwater all offseason. So this is probably going to be a winner of seeing if they can get Rojas figured out, bring him to spring training. If he hits, he hits. And if he doesn't, you have your answer. And Taijuan Walker is going to continue the weighted ball program he was doing, see if they can get the velocity back. And I think you get to spring training and maybe early in April. And if you don't see anything, you have your answer for Taijuan Walker.
Yeah. If you don't see 96, it's over.
Yeah. So from a payroll and roster construction standpoint, it was interesting because from my understanding, they have money to spend. Middleton said that they can make it work if there needs to be a big contract. And obviously, if he would have stopped there, that would have led to a ton of speculation. But Dombrowski said that he thinks this team has enough stars, which we're probably going to have to break down what that all means at a later point when we do our kind of free agency preview. But I just found that interesting how he worded that.
I actually love that he mentioned that, because what I've been thinking about as I sit here in my misery, thinking about, oh man, what could we have done better? What are other teams doing better than the Phillies? And for me, it's that other teams don't have such a big gap from their star players to their bottom of the order players. And for the Phillies, I think it's more about how do you bridge that gap so that your secondary players that are in the bottom of the order that gap's not as far,
Yeah,
and I don't think we need to pay. I don't think getting a Juan Soto is going to fix all of our issues. We still have 7, 8, 9 that is an issue, and we need higher caliber play out of those guys.
Yeah, he really wouldn't commit to any even ideas for what he's going to do. And it was if you were looking for answers, it was a kind of a letdown in terms of a press conference. There was a whole list. I mean, Bryce wasn't mentioned in anything. Schwarber. There was someone who was mentioned a lot was Trey Turner.
A lot.
There were a lot of questions about Trey Turner, and it kind of made me go down the rabbit hole because people were referencing stuff that I didn't even think about. Dombrowski said, "Oh, and another thing that he really avoided was the chase rate. When someone would bring up chase rate, he would kind of downplay it, and I found that to be very interesting. That they're not seeing the same they're seeing the same problems, but they don't think it's the same cause. And they're very smart people who are in that front office seeing the same stuff we do. Their issue or their perceived issue of this team seems to be a problem of trying to pull the ball. And, you see this team, you see these players whiff on these outside sliders. And it certainly might be because they're trying to put the ball in the air and hit home runs. And it's a simple thing that every age group struggles with. You try to yank the ball down the line and hit for power. And Dombrowski said that he wants this team, and he didn't name anybody specifically, but we know Trey Turner was probably one of those people because of all the questions about him. He wants them to use all sides of the field, take some of those outside pitches that we're whiffing on because we're trying to generate power, and take them the other way. And Trey Turner, apparently his fly ball rate has skyrocketed. I had no idea, hadn't even noticed that because I was so concerned about the chase rate. But he seems to want to be a home run hitter, which we didn't sign him to be. And Dombrowski also made that clear. The guys who we don't expect to hit for power, we don't want them to hit for power. We want them to be good hitters. Bryson Stott, Trey Turner, those are table setters that get on for the big guys who hit home runs. Bryce Harper, etc. And if you're looking at the team and what went wrong, it's kind of due to the fact that everybody was trying to do the same thing, which was hit home runs. Yeah. There was nobody getting on base. There was nobody grinding out at bats. Everybody was trying to be the hero. Why they're doing that, I have no idea. Is it an ego thing? Does everybody want to be the hero? I don't understand it, but that is a very good point because good hitters, they take the ball where it is and they go opposite field. Bryce Harper's great at it. Really good hitters are really, really good at just taking the ball where it is. And when you get away from that, you start to open up holes in your swing really badly.
No, 100%. Yeah, I think that was a very interesting point to me. I kind of did feel like towards the end of the season, everyone did try to play the same role. I feel like we didn't see it as much in the beginning of the season. I felt like guys were a little more disciplined in their roles. And then I just feel like something kind of flipped and everyone's swings got a little more aggressive and, less kind of taking what they're giving you and more just trying to do the same thing with every pitch. And we just look at the team we played, the Mets. The amount of guys they have that just fit their role really well. Look at guys like Raciel Iglesias. Like, he's not the best player in the league. They don't pay him to be the best player in the league, but he had an impact that was larger than Trey Turner because he stayed within himself. And I think that's the point they were trying to make. If these guys just do what they do best, we're a better squad.
If Trey Turner was the player that we expected him to be, this lineup looks completely different. And you just you really have a lot of players who have the same profile. And the thing is, those players they don't have the same profile. They're just doing the same things at this point. And I just found that super interesting. Real quick, last thing on Dombrowski, because there really wasn't much to him, but Trey Turner's defense was questioned several times, and he did his thing where
great questions
he didn't
by Tim
really,
Kelly.
yeah, he didn't really suggest anything other than Trey Turner being a shortstop of the future. And I get that too. You want to show confidence in your guy. It just would have made me feel a little better if he kind of acknowledged that it's not great.
Yeah, I think the only acknowledgement we really got there is that, yeah, sure, he does make too many errors, but like, he's athletic and he's going to age well, which I was like, I don't think that's how it works. I think there's a lot more that goes to playing shortstop than athletic ability and speed. I think you have to be a good middle infielder, which I don't think he is. Why can't we address that? If we want to be a better team, you have to look at the ugly truth. Ugly truth is the guy you paid $300 million plays a shitty shortstop. That fired me up. You're right.
That
They
was frustrating.
They should be more accountable about that one.
Yeah, it was very frustrating, but Dombrowski had a plan, and he stuck to his talking points, and that was it. Topper was a little more candid, in my opinion. I think that he went into it with he was just he felt a little more honest with what he was saying. He felt like he was just being a little more genuine. The interesting thing about the Topper press conference, and I think this goes back to the coaching staff, he talked about a lot of the problems with the hitting and the all fields approach that we were lacking. But he made it a point to say, and it was almost a defense mechanism, but he stressed the point that the coaching staff and K Long do convey this to the hitters. This has been going on since spring training, and they are working on it every day. He made it a point to say that K Long is doing that, and the coaching staff is really kind of holding up their end of the deal. So when you look at that, saying that, and then everybody getting an additional year for 2025, it really does make me think that the coaching staff and the front office thinks that this is on the players. The players didn't produce, and the players had every opportunity throughout the year to work on those problems that were exposed in the playoffs. If they're practicing this every day, at a certain point, it's on the player. The coach can only do so much to kind of change a profile of a batter, and it just kind of feels like he was saying, like, this team, this is the players. Like, at the end of the day, the coaching staff could only do so much, and I thought that was eye-opening because you never see that from coaches. And Topper did it with his typical, like, kindness. He didn't say, he didn't go out and say, oh, he wasn't listening, but he said that the coaches were working on it, and it's been going on all season, and they are very well aware of the problem. Very interesting.
That is very interesting. That is a very polite way for Topper to kind of call out the players like that. I know he's just a nice guy, but part of me wishes he would do it a little stronger because I think he might be right. I think we do have, by building a team with these many stars, there are egos, and there are guys that believe that what got them here on the back of their baseball card is enough, and they can keep doing that and ride out their contracts, and all will be fine. But they can't. You have to adapt if you want to continue to be a good baseball player. And I mean, anyone that's ever played baseball, even at a lower level, knows that, like, manager can only do so much with, like, your hitting approach. I mean, you can tell them to do something. You can tell them to work counts, hit line drives, but they have to do it. They have to practice it, and they have to implement that in the games. It's not something a coach can make happen. The only things you can really point towards Topper for are like who he's playing, who he's bullpen decisions. I mean, offensive approach, it's K Long and the players.
Yeah, and usually in these situations when you see a hitting an offense struggle like that, you automatically usually see a front office say, okay, let's shake it up at the hitting coach position. But to see the front office and the coaching staff give their full support behind our hitting coach and the coaching staff, it was very eye-opening. But I agree, we have to hold players accountable. These guys, like after this early exit in the playoffs, it's on these guys to fix those holes. These guys have gotten paid. A new hitting coach is going to come in and say exactly the same stuff Kevin Long is. It's on the players after a certain point. And that was kind of the big theme of both of them. This team, and it's true, it's just we don't really want to accept it. This team was plenty good enough to win it all. And the bullpen, they didn't really touch upon the bullpen, but it's the bullpen. That bullpen was good enough. They just didn't get it done. And I know we were very angry last week. I know that it stinks and it's not going to make us feel any better, but man, circumstances kind of just came together. We played bad at the wrong time. The Mets were very hot. We probably don't talk about that enough. That Mets team is red hot.
No, we don't. It's because we hate them, but we don't talk about it enough.
We were very frustrated, but the front office kind of looked at this and said, this team's very good. We just kind of got a shitty draw in this wild card format, and a couple guys didn't step up, but it's not a fundamental flaw in the team. Even if we might not necessarily agree, this is kind of how I perceive what they were saying. The team's good enough.
No, I hear you.
The team doesn't need to be blown up. The bullpen was plenty good enough to win us a World Series, and it probably was. It's just we ran into a really good team, and we had some holes that we never shored up throughout the season, and circumstances just didn't go our way. And that's baseball. And I think that going forward, they think that maybe some small changes, maybe a new position player, maybe kind of mixing up roles on this team in terms of lineup construction. Topper didn't really commit to anything there, and it makes me think that they're going to get a longer look at where they're putting everybody throughout this lineup. Kind of similar to past off seasons. I don't know if it gives me confidence, but seeing them kind of tell us that in the way they did gives me a little confidence, if that makes sense.
A little confidence about what?
That maybe they're right. This team is good enough, and circumstances just didn't go our way.
Yeah, I actually kind of had that takeaway because at the beginning I was just fired up, like, no, like, come on, like, say something like everyone else. But it is the ugly truth that this team had plenty enough to win, and they played a hot team, and they didn't play up to their best baseball. They weren't their best versions of themselves when they needed to the most, and it sucks, but pouring more money into players isn't necessarily the solution.
Yeah, and could they be saying that because they really mean it, or could they be saying that because they're kind of stuck with the score? We'll never know. There's only so much shaking up you can do with 9 years of Trey Turner, who looks terrible, and a 34-year-old JT Realmuto. Like, there's really nothing you can do unless you're talking about trading the young guys, which they don't really want to do. They have a lot of faith in these young guys. So it's probably a mixture of confidence and just saving face on the roster that they've created. We'll never know for sure, but very interesting stuff out of this press conference here.
Yeah, no doubt. It definitely left me quite mellow about going into like the off season and winter meetings. I wouldn't expect anything crazy. I mean, I think they're going to be looking around. I think a couple of these veterans, like the Taiwan Walkers, and then I think other guys, not going to name names, but like I think everyone with a larger contract will kind of, except for like Harper and Turner, will kind of be floated around just to see if they can like kind of like dump a contract and then maybe try to just fix the structure of this lineup a little bit. I think there's just a couple holes in there. But the guys like Marsh, Stott, Bohm, we got fantastic value out of all three of those guys. If you look at what they produce for their contracts, really can't beat it. Yeah.
The biggest investment that the team's going to make is going to be in its own players and trying to get these guys right, trying to fix the holes that these players have, and running it back with a core that they think can be better, which, I mean, they could be better. We've seen these guys be better. Whether they will be better, we don't know. But as of now, that kind of seems like the plan.
Yeah. All we need realistically, God, I hate that I'm already being optimistic again, but all you need is like you get a Bryce Harper, like one of his real MVP years, and you get a Trey Turner kind of back to Trey Turner for a year offensively, and things look a little different. They just do.
Yeah. I think that's all I got. You have anything else on the 90 minutes of Phil's talk that went on this morning?
No, man, nothing too crazy. Pretty much what you expect out of those guys. I guess welcome back, Topper. Sorry to kind of come at your throat last week, but we got you for 2 more years, man. Let's ride.
Yeah, he's our guy again, so we got to buy in. You know, it's like Nola. We're stuck with him now, so we might as well support him. There's no other point.
Yeah, I always supported Nola, but we ride with Topper again. Topper, we trust.
Yes, sir. Alrighty, that should do it. It's mid-October. Playoffs are still going on. Free agency several weeks away, and I think that's probably the next time we're going to talk to you guys, unless something major happens.
Yeah,
Right?
unless we want to do one of these spontaneous episodes again.
Yeah, we do that sometimes.
Yeah, for some reason, I almost want to talk more once we get to the end of the season. It's a strange phenomenon.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll play it by ear, but as always, thank you guys for listening, and we will be back to talk to you soon.
Go Phils.